believe it or not, there are also people that consume your day. And you could probably make a list of those people as well to identify them. But maybe you created that. So I'm going to ask you that when employees come to you with problems or questions, see, they're looking for you to solve them. I'm going to ask you to don't do it. So when somebody comes to you with a problem, instead of you giving them the answer, like the great leader you have been in the past, I'd like you to look at them and say, how would you handle that? Just turn it back around. Give them an opportunity. Allow them to think. And you know what? You're going to be shocked. 90% of the time, I bet they have the answer. What I'm going to ask you to do is train these people about how right they actually are. Have you ever heard that old saying that if you give them a fish, you can feed them for a day? If you teach them how to fish, you can feed them for a lifetime? That's exactly what this is all about. This is about how to be a great leader, how to coach people that they're actually smart enough to make their own decisions. And what you're going to find out is these people that used to come to you all day long asking you questions, they're going to stop. And guess how much time that's going to give you in your day? And you've also created some other great employees in your organization because now you've got people that believe in themselves. That is absolutely crucial. Also, keep a delegation log. When you delegate an assignment, write it down. So you'll be able to monitor the progress and keep track of deadlines that you set. The worst thing you can do to employees is give them an assignment, tell them how important it is. And it's a 4-week project. And about 2 weeks into it, an employee comes up to you and says, oh, I've almost got it done. I'm doing so good. And you go, what? Well, the thing you gave me. And you go, what? That would demotivate people very quickly and certainly tell them how important it was, which it wasn't. Last thing is follow up. Request that employees come to you with frequent updates on their progress. You know, it might be daily, it might be weekly, it's whatever it is. But you should not have to run around to get information from your employees. Set up systems where they come to you. See, outstanding leaders aren't paid to make the popular decision. They're paid to make the right decision. Hey, these are going to butt heads many times in your leadership career. You're going to have to stand in front of your employees sometimes, and you're going to have to say, you know what? This is not going to be a popular decision, but it is the right decision for our company. I'd also like you to make sure your boundaries are clearly defined for your employees. See, being an outstanding leader is a lot like being a good parent. You don't try to control their every move, but you do give them clear boundaries. And you give them room to move freely. That's not the issue. But you want to make sure that they understand what the boundaries are and how clearly defined they are, because boundaries that are not clearly defined are painful. And what I mean by that is when you set up non-negotiable standards with your employees, every employee should have standards. They should have in writing someplace what their job responsibilities are. Or maybe service standards. When a customer walks through the front door, what are the things that you want them to do? How soon should they acknowledge the customer? What should come out of their mouth? Should they stand to greet the customer? Should they shake the customer's hands? So make sure that all of your employees have non-negotiable standards for every single transaction or customer interaction. But regardless whether it's service standards or it's their job duties, make sure that they're very clearly defined in writing. Never assume that your employees know what they're supposed to be doing. Make sure it is written down and it is clearly defined. See, customer service coaching, it's primarily about behavior change. It's not operational. It's not technical. And see, therefore, you must focus your coaching skills more on the why they should change their behaviors. Because truly, employees, they may not change their behavior unless they perceive a need for change. And employees and organizations may never change unless the leaders admit there is a need. So it's crucial that you communicate to your people the need for exceeding customers' expectations, or the need to treat customers the way that we personally would like to be treated. And, of course, focus on why should they do that. But between you and me, the biggest why is because if you treat people good, they're going to treat you great in return. That's the biggest payoff you can get. When we talk about culture change, and you've heard me use the word culture before, see, employees need to be told that the culture of our company is going to be that we're going to exceed customers' expectations. Now, every so often you hear people use the words program or the word initiative. Anytime you use the words program or initiative to your people, you tell them you've got a new customer service program, you've just told them it's got an expiration date. You have. We do that to people. So we got a new customer service program. We get all excited about it. We launch it. It goes for about 60 days. It peters out in about 90 days. And guess what happens? We replace it with another program. We come out with a sales program. So customer service just went away. So I want you to make sure that you never use the word program or initiative when you're talking about customer service. Customer service is all about changing our culture. We in this organization have a customer service culture. It's woven into the fabric of the organization that way, and it is not going to go away. And if you're going to have a great culture, you must also create an environment where this culture can exist. Don't try to stifle people's creativity and ingenuity. As long as they're staying within your guidelines and your boundaries, make sure that you've given some freedom to be able to use their personality and to try some new things. If you don't allow them to try new things, the culture will go away. As you've probably heard before, you're only as strong as your weakest link. See, even one employee not committed to the culture of the organization can weaken the entire organization. The culture, it must be non-negotiable. How many times have you walked in to a business and you had an experience with an employee, but you walked out of that business and you said, I will never go back to XYZ business again. Never! And you got home, you told your significant other, we're never going back to XYZ again. Boy, that place, those people are horrible in there. What's interesting is you probably painted that entire business or corporation with this big, huge red paintbrush because of the behavior of one person. And that's the kind of stuff that we do. That's why you cannot allow any mediocrity in your organization. If you have one employee not committed to the culture, and if they do not want to become part of the culture, sometimes you have to make the decision to remove them from your culture. I'd also like you to think about coaching your employees and not teaching employees. See, for the most part, I'm a teacher. Even though I do personal coaching and coaching, I view myself as a teacher in most cases. I stand in front of anywhere between 100 and 1,000 people, and I teach, and I walk away. But you, if you have employees underneath of you, they're around you all the time, you have the ability to coach them on an ongoing basis. See, teaching is a one-time event, and it tells employees what to do. Coaching, it's continuous, and it's consistent. Plus, you tell them why they should do it. I mean, if you think about a baseball coach. Now, here in Seattle, we have the Seattle Mariners. Now, if Edgar Martinez is not hitting good, the batting coach doesn't walk up to Edgar and say, Edgar, your batting stinks. Hey, Edgar knows that. What Edgar needs is he needs very specific information about how we can change his behavior. The batting coach will hopefully say, Edgar, try spacing your stance out a couple extra inches, and let's try that. If that's not working, okay, Edgar, raise your elbow in the back another inch. If that's not working, okay, Edgar, turn your head a little bit more to the left, and let's try that. See, the coach gives very specific information about how they can change their behavior. But we never want to forget the why. Another example, if you're trying to teach an employee about giving good eye contact with the customer, the first thing is they need to know why they should change their behavior. So I would give them the scenario like this. Let's just say you walked into a car lot and a salesman walked up to sell you a car, but the salesman would not look at you in the eyes. What perception had that left you with? Chances are the employee is going to say, well, they were really shady, or their integrity was out of line. There'll be something about that person's integrity. So you look at the employee and you say, is there any possibility that when you're dealing with people and you're not looking at them in the eyes, that they're thinking the same about you? Now, it may not be true. That may be a misperception. But could people be thinking the same thing? Or maybe it's a lack of confidence. If you're not looking someone in the eyes, could they perceive it as a lack of confidence? Now let's look at how we can change the behavior. Now that we understand why, let's look at changing that behavior. Now let's just say that employee, every single customer now that walks in that door today what I'd like you to do is I would like you to look in and see if you can see the color of their eyes. Yeah, the color of each person's eyes. Can you determine what that is? See, that's about the amount of time it's going to take in order to create a good emotional attachment with that person. So that's what a great coach does. We give them the why and we give them the how to change. And that's the difference between a trainer and a coach. See, everybody has different learning styles. So to be an outstanding leader, you must be able to identify the best coaching tools for each individual employee. Don't try to paint everyone with the same paintbrush. Now, let's talk about the 3 different learning styles there are. The first one is a visual learner. Now, a visual learner thinks in pictures. Now, they're a person that tends to not like telephones as much. In other words, if the phone rings, they're not going to race you for it. They're going to let you get it. They also like things written down. They like notes, letters, emails, faxes. They like to be able to see things. And they might not have as much expression in their voices. They tend to have a little bit more flat or monotone voice. And these people, they must think before they talk. See, they're the ones when you ask them a question, they'll put their hand under their chin sometimes, they'll look up in the air a little bit, and they'll have a real glary look in their face like they're focused. And they're not responding to you right away. Now, so you may think they're slow, but they're not slow. They're waiting for a picture to form before they respond back to you. And when they give feedback, listen very carefully to their language because they might use words like, I see what you mean. Yeah, I see what you mean. It's because they can. They've got the visual picture. When you walk up to talk to these people, the distance between you and them will probably end up being about 4 to 5 feet. They tend to stand back a little bit because they want to see the entire picture. They also exhibit very little eye movement, and they tend to stay more focused. Now, the best ways to coach these people is using diagrams, pictures, bullet points, or any other literature that they can see. Now there's also auditory learners. Auditory learners, they like to hear things spoken. They love telephones. Heck, if that thing rings, they're going to race you for it. Heck, they're going to win. They also have a tendency to interrupt because they respond as soon as they hear something. So they're the ones that'll talk over the back of your sentences, kind of drive you nuts sometimes. Also, they talk to think. Not all the time, but they're the ones that are more prone to sitting at their desk and they're talking to themselves, and you think they're nuts? Well, they might be nuts too, I don't know, but they're also auditory learners. And when they give feedback, listen to their language carefully, because they might use words like, that sounds good to me. The distance between you and them when you're having conversations can be as close as a foot or so. Heck, they don't need to see all of you. They just want to see your mouth move. They also exhibit lots of eye movement, usually from side to side, because they don't need to keep any picture formed. And again, they're normally pretty close in on you. The best ways to coach these people is simply verbally. They're the easiest ones to deal with because it doesn't take much preparation time. You can simply talk to them. Last is the kinesthetic learner. You may also hear them called kinetic learners. A kinesthetic person is kind of more of a touchy-feely person. They'll come up to talk to you and they'll put their hands on you sometimes. They also deal with the emotion of movement. They like a lot of movement in their learning. And they might use words like, I feel in their conversation, like, I feel that's a good idea. They learn more by hands-on coaching as well. They want to be active in the process. So the best ways to coach these people is, again, role-playing. That's a good one for them. Or, again, somewhere they can keep them moving, their hands moving, and keep them active in the process. Some people could be a mixture of all 3, but normally there's one dominant one. So if I was you, what I would do is, if these descriptions did not define that person for you, I would sit them down and I would actually ask them the questions, ask them some of the questions I just talked about, and get them to commit to one of these learning styles and write it down. That way, if you need to coach these people, you can look at your sheet of paper. It says, Bob, he's verbal or he's auditory. That's great. I can just sit down and talk to Bob. But Jane, she's visual. Therefore, I better find something on a website. I better pull out a policy manual, give her a brochure. I better have something for her to see. And the kinesthetic learner, you better make sure that you get them active, again, maybe in some role playing or taking notes. Sometimes your actions speak louder